because you can have a brand that just suddenly pops out of nowhere and you're like, wow, why and how did that work? So what I'm going to do is break down a great example for you of why a brand works. And it's one that you all know very, very well, Charlotte Tilbury, a brand that I launched while I was at Selfridges. It was a concept on paper, they were launching it, and kind of Charlotte herself came and pitched that to me. There was a reason that worked so well, and a lot of the other makeup brands had no idea why she had taken up so much market share. And I still talk to some brands today, and they still haven't really identified, I suppose, the building blocks that created this. They were just like, well, we were really innovative in makeup, and she knocked everybody off the #1 spot, number 2, 3, 4. Everyone moved down a peg. Within 6 months, she was that #1 brand within Selfridges, which I can tell you was a huge amount of money. And so there's 6 reasons that worked so well. And the first one was she aligned to consumer trends. We were seeing the rise of social media, the rise of YouTube. People were Googling how to create a smoky eye. They were Googling it, looking at videos and tutorials. People were doing it and then ended up looking a bit like a panda. Couldn't really do it themselves. So what she created is kind of these 10 looks. She saw this as a problem for people, and she thought, okay, I can help you recreate this look. I can teach you what to do. This is how to apply the makeup. I will do it for you in some amazing stores and retailers, and also teach you kind of more in-depth tutorials. And these are the products that you need to use as well. So again, she simplified that problem and so made it really easy to understand. That 10 looks, it was one woman, which was great. And she then said, do you want to look like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? You could pick your look and immediately have that transformation. She was also an expert as well. She was an expert, but she had to build up her profile. So she, yes, had worked backstage makeup artists for years and years and years, all the big fashion shows. She'd done almost every single Vogue cover going. She was best friends with all the A-list celebrities. But did the general Joe public know who she was? Not necessarily. So when she wanted that big space in Selfridges, we were like, well, do people know who she is enough? She obviously does in that industry, but actually at that time, which was kind of 10 years ago now, that backstage makeup artist thing just wasn't as important. So what we did was really kind of create and precede her expertise before the brand even launched. So expertise in a field is super helpful as well. So if you are an expert, and I imagine you are, because you've created something different and unique, and you spent a long time creating that, it's really important to talk about your expertise as well, because that really helps to build trust and build validation as well. So that expertise is really helpful, and that's the third point. So that rise of the consumer trends and YouTube, the expertise, and that simplifying the problem with those 10 simple looks are the first 3. When she also had those 10 looks as well, and she was helping people to apply them, it also meant that people had to buy the whole collection of makeup. Most brands were selling 1 or 2 products. She suddenly came along and was selling 10 at once. So her average transaction value was huge. So automatically she was taking kind of 5 or 6 times the amount from one customer as the other brands were. So again, that really propelled her forward. So having those looks, having that, I suppose, formula really helped increase sales rapidly. She was also very clever on her distribution strategy. So she knew digital was going to be huge. So positioned herself and talked about being a digital first brand, but ultimately used global retailers to fast track her growth. So launching it exclusively in Selfridges, who obviously had a customer base of hundreds of millions, billions probably, globally. Everyone knew who Selfridges was. So that really positioned her well. And then did the same in key cities in the UK and then internationally as well, kind of similar model within the US and then Middle East and just everywhere. So she was very clever about not distributing too broadly, but also then really using the customer awareness for being in those retailers to also drive her digital channels. Because ultimately, as digital marketing is getting more challenging and more expensive, that brand awareness can really help drive organic traffic to your D2C channels. So that was the 5th thing that, again, was part of her formula. And then the final 6th point, she worked with expertise she didn't have. She obviously was the go-to person in makeup. She'd helped create Tom Ford's makeup range, for example. She was an absolute expertise. But actually then she needed the business side. So she had the most amazing kind of co-founder and managing director who worked with her, who was kind of former McKinsey, and was really helped on those building blocks. So getting that expertise, we only all know what we know. So who else can you kind of get you to help, get help to support you in your journey as well? So that's my little case study on Charlotte Tilbury, because once you start breaking things down, you can start to see why she had so much success. And like I said, a lot of those big brands out there to this day are still a bit perplexed about how that really happened. So again, when you're going back to whether you're a big brand or you've been trading not very long, and you want to look at your positioning, you really need to think about lots of different variables on that.